So we have a Firman WH03242, and what happened on this is customer went to remove the spark plug and snapped it off. So we're gonna go ahead and replace the head gasket. Since we have the valve cover and a new spark plug, we're also going to put that on there too. So we're going to have to tear this apart, but real quick, the new head, this is our new head, we're going to have to reinstall or remove from that and install. If you look at the threads on this one, they're all completely boogered up. So that's why we're replacing it. You could technically put like a helicoil or something in there, but the customer wants the head replaced. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. The head part number is 330413. 001. The spark plug they have on here is part number 330723001. The cylinder head cover gasket is part number 333467006, and then the gasket for the cylinder head is 330723611. So let's go ahead and start taking this thing apart. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure the fuel is off, and it is. We're going to go ahead and turn this thing around. We're going to pull this whole cover off. We're probably going to end up having to pull a lot of stuff off, unfortunately, because this is a fairly large job. And I'll kind of show you what I mean real quick when we get underneath this cover. Oops. So basically what we got to do is we got to remove all of this. So air filter, assembly, carburetor, and then oh yes, we actually have to remove the exhaust. So the muffler is on this side. So we really have to take all of this off. So we're gonna go ahead and pull her apart. I'm gonna grab a magnetic tray back here. There we go. Since we're gonna have many screws. And then down here they have 2 bolts, and they're 10 millimeter. So far everything else is Phillips. There we go. And then up above there's some more screws. And it looks like these are longer screws, so keep that in mind. So I got to pull this gas cap off, and then I got to pull this gasket. And let's see, to get this removed, we got to pinch this chain. Got to get this out. So basically, this gas cap is retained with this, like so, in a little hole, and you got to kind of pinch these out. So now I can pull this whole piece up and off. And since these screws are longer, I'm going to place them in the holes of the lid just to remind myself. And then we're going to go ahead and close this cap. I'm not going to put it back in its hole, but close that up. Okay, so now let's take this off. We also have a couple screws right here. These are also short. Sometimes, let's see here. Oh, they actually have a couple screws on the inside. So let's get the side ones off here real quick. Get a little bit of light. So these are much larger screw heads on the side. Those are bolts down below that we're gonna have to remove. Okay, so let's turn it around where there's more stuff that we're gonna have to take off over there, but we're kind of working around. Sometimes these side panels, you have to take those off. All right, these, sometimes you have to take off before you can get the sides off. They have several different flavors, so they do things just slightly different in some of them. And these are all the short screws. Pull this, set it aside, and then that's where our inverter is. And I'm hoping I don't have to mess with that, but we will find out. That one's really on there. There we go. Get those bolts out. And we have 2 screws up there. We definitely have no shortage in screws. Okay, so these bolts are a little longer, or screws a little longer, so keep that in mind. So on here, I know there's 3 screws around the top, back here. Try not to drop them. And these are slightly different, so I'm going to keep these together. So they're a little bit shorter than some of the other ones. So I'm just going to lay it down up there. Now, gas cap. Put that screw down there. Okay, so now, hopefully, let's see here. Oh, forgot a screw here. These are standards, yes. So now, let's see here. Oh, I missed a screw right here. There's a silver screw going right into the inverter. That one. Let's see, I think we have a screw holding in. So let's go ahead and pull all these screws. These are all their standard ones. Then usually there's bolts, yep. Down here. Of course, break it loose. Sometimes I pull it back quick enough to hopefully pop it out of there, so I'm not having to use pliers to get to it. Okay, now there is a screw right here that I forgot. So we'll pull that one out real quick. And these are standard. Okay. So let's see here. Now I got the screws out of this. Got the screws out there. Okay, so there's a lip on this, if you notice right here. So there's a little lip. So this can't just pull right out. And then this can't pull, this outer skin can't pull right off because we have 2 screws right here and then 2 screws right there and 2 screws basically right here and right here. So I gotta pull all of those real quick. So, and they're these silver ones, like so. I'm gonna grab a magnet real quick because I usually like to set a magnet just on there, just to, next to where I pull the screw, just in case it comes out so I don't drop it. So let me grab a magnet real quick. What I do is usually take my magnet and I'll put it just like this when I take the screw out, like so I don't lose them. And these are actually tapered. So I got one there, got 2, well, I already took the other one. So I got another one here, and then one more right here. That way, because sometimes sticking your finger in there to try to grab it doesn't always work, and then you end up losing it, and then it's just a whole magic trick game that I hate having to play. That's unwanted. Okay, so now I've got these 2 screws here. That's one. That's 2. And I've got 2 here. There we go. Okay, so now that we got those, we can pull this back. This I won't be able to pull too far because I'll probably have to take a few things off, but I'm hoping I don't have to mess with that at all. See, now we can get this whole piece off. We'll set it aside. And then flip this around. I'm hoping now I can pull this off, like so. And then this, we may have to remove the bolts for the handle, or actually I could take these 2 screws off, which have captured nuts on the back side. So we'll take these screws out. That way I don't have to worry about pulling all that apart. Less is more.
Just take the tank out of it.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to.
It's just sitting there now.
So now I'm just gonna put these screws just finger tight in here, like so. Because we start to get into a few different flavors of screws. Okay, so now we have our gas tank. It feels fairly empty, which is nice. So this is a vent tube, and fuel is over there. So that's actually going to be.
Oh, once you pull the vent tube.
Yeah, let's pull this. So, and then I'm gonna grab a pair of pliers that I have a little more meat on, because usually what I'll do is I'll clip over this and then rock it to break it, the seal, like so, and then you can pull them off usually. Okay, so now let's see what we can do in terms of that fuel without spilling it all over the place. So I'm thinking, since it's fairly empty and I could tip it all this way, I think I'm just gonna disconnect it right from here, and then I'll just set it upright, and that way, hopefully, I don't have to deal with much in terms of gas spillage. All right, so same gig, pop that hose clamp, and then just kind of break that seal. Let's see if I can pull it off. Grab a pair of pliers, needle nose pliers, and sometimes you can get in between if you get just enough of a gap where you can start to work the hose off. There we go, just like so. So now we're going to set the gas tank aside, keep it up high enough so we're not spilling any gas. Okay, so this is what we're looking at. We have to pull this engine cover off. We got to pull this muffler off. We got to pull this carb off. It's a lot of work. Yep. So just to replace this broken or the head where the threads are stripped. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to take a quick picture with my phone just so I have quick references of where everything is. In case something was to happen, I can quickly reference that. So let me grab my phone. Okay, so I'm just taking a whole bunch of pictures for just a quick reference. It just saves a lot of time making sure, and it doesn't hurt to take more than necessary. All right, so I think I am good on the pictures. This is going to be quite a bit of work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus over here. We're going to get a lot of this cleared out of the way, and then I'll shift over here towards the exhaust. We'll start taking some stuff off there, and then I think we'll probably be clear to go ahead and remove this head. So we'll start over here. So here is our battery. So let's get this cute little guy out.
Oh, look at it. It has a little rubber hat.
Yeah. All right, so we have a little zip tie right here. Let's kind of hold in this positive side, or no, negative side of the battery lead. I am going to disconnect this, making sure I know which direction to go. Okay, so we have a screwdriver or standard Phillips right here, which I actually need to grab one. Grabbed a little shorty. I really got that thing on there. There we go.
That screw terminals. I've never seen screw.
I haven't seen screw terminals like that. That's interesting. Okay, so we'll put this other screw back in here so we know where this one came from. And we'll set the battery aside. Its other little components. Okay, so then now let's turn to this inverter. So the inverter, I'm hoping, really don't have to disconnect anything. I'm hoping we can just set it aside, but let's see how much room we have. I may have to just disconnect it, but we'll see. Some of these I've been able to just kind of tuck aside and we're good, and then not always the case though. This one, there's a lot here. So, okay, I think the best thing to do is to let's see, what do we got there? Oh yeah, that will help a little bit. So let me take another picture just to make sure how we, oops.
It's dual fuel too, extra hose.
Yeah, and this is your propane line. Okay, so we're gonna take a few pictures just showing kind of routing. Just kind of keep all of those things. And then quick pictures of where everything is connected. They're usually pretty straightforward, and we're gonna actually just disconnect this because then it's just gonna be way easier to have off. So we'll go ahead and disconnect this little guy, and then disconnect this and that. And then this one, I gotta push down and pull out. These. Yeah, overall they are pretty straightforward, and sometimes, like, if you have to, just do this. Just open it up when you get a little bit further in, take a few pictures. It doesn't hurt, because I mean, where it looks like it might fit, it's not. But in the end, you know, in case there is a plug that looks very similar. Yeah, there's just so much plugged into these inverters. And then this one, you have to kind of pinch it. Let me grab my seat and kind of, let me pinch these over here and get those off. That way I can get better access to this. Set it down. And then what I'm going to do, these bolts came off for the inverter. They're really long. I'm just going to put them right back on here. Just a little bit, a few threads just to hold it. And then with this, probably not pushing this in all the way. There we go. And then you can pull it right out. Okay, so I am going to, no, I'm going to just set it aside. I think I'm fine setting it aside. Reason why I didn't want to go in here and cut all this, they already cleaned this up. I don't find it necessary to cut any of that because generally I can get in here and get most things. And then, let's see. Okay, good. There is, just want to make sure there's not a bolt down here. Okay, good. So it's just a bolt there, bolt here, bolt here. So there's 3 holding the pole starter assembly, because we're probably going to have to pull that off in order to get the engine cover off, because I don't want to have to pull. This is all fixed. I can't pull this off. All right, now we're to the carburetor. So let's get our air filter removed. I'm going to set it aside. We've got to take this little guy out. And then these are normally 10 mil. Okay, so this is these hoses right here. You have a breather tube coming off your valve cover, which is this larger hose right here, and it connects there. This is your evap tube that comes off this charcoal canister. It's part of the emissions control for the tank vent. So let me put that in there. Sometimes what happens is your socket may not be long enough, and if that's the case, sometimes you can just take it out, push it in all the way, and then set this on. And if you end up popping these off, then just get a deep socket. But that's how I can get away with not having to use a deep socket on some things. There's a lot of work.
Lots of disassemble.
Yeah. So normally what I do is I try to set things up in order that they came off, so I can kind of go back to that. It just makes it easier when you go to take it off, because generally the way you took it off is going to be the way you're going to have to put it back on. All right, so we're going to need to take this carb off. I'm trying to see if there's anything right offhand. I do know that this this is your stepper motor for your throttle control, and then this is your manual choke cable that we can go ahead and disconnect. There's no, it's easy to set these, so you don't really need to mark anything necessarily. Oop. Okay, and then we gotta loosen this. We'll pull this guy out and we'll just snug this up. Okay, so choke cable's disconnected. This is our propane line. So I am going to, and this is our fuel. I'm kind of hoping, actually, you know what? I think I could just pull this out and swing it aside. So without having to disconnect all of this stuff. So let me go ahead and put this choke. No, I'm gonna leave this one off because it's a little more rigid. I'll take those off, pull this guy back. Okay, now these tubes, this is a drain tube, this is a vent tube, which comes over here, connected to this guy here. We're just gonna pop that off and then make sure we can hopefully route everything out. And then pull that down. Trying to be careful of the gasket on the carb. And then I'm hoping we can just kind of get it out of the way, kind of like so. Okay, looking at this a little bit, I just got the car moved off to the side. I'm trying to not take a large amount of stuff off if possible. I'm trying to kind of tuck things out of my way if I can. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the pole starter assembly off. And I'm hoping we can get this engine cover out after we do that. So let's go ahead and start with the upper bolt, and that's going to be the easy part. These lower ones, I'm throwing my tools. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to grab my baby ratchet. I call it the baby ratchet, which is a quarter. I'm gonna grab my quarter ratchet and with a 10 mil socket on there so I can reach down here. Now let me do that real quick. Let's see if we can reach in here. Get this one removed. See, it's always easy to take things apart. It's harder putting it all back together generally. Because now some of these parts, when you take them out, especially like the bolt on that side holding this pulsar assembly on, it's going to be a little challenging. Okay, so I got this one out. I'm gonna set that right there. Now this last one. Let's see if I can reach in here. It's not too bad, but it's not the easiest. There we go. Okay, so I'm trying to, I got the bolt. Now the pulsar is going to pull that way because it's attached right here. So I got to kind of tuck this out like so. And now we can hopefully pull the engine cover bolt. So we got one here, one down there, I believe one down there, which is going to be a little fun, and then one up here. Oh, yeah. So let's get the easy ones out. Oh, and just so I don't forget, I'm gonna just put, actually I'm gonna set it aside because I can do it right after. I'm just trying to keep all the bolts together. So these are a little bit longer. These are shorter. That's for the pull start assembly. These are for the engine cover. So that's just stuff to kind of keep in mind. Let's see. Try to get this one. Okay, so now I think what I'm gonna have to do is get my little extension on this, and then I can get those other two. So I got my little extension on here. And try to reach it down in here, and then I can break that loose. Now that I got loose, hopefully I can spin it by hand. There we go. Let's see how you end up dropping them. That's where the magnet's gonna be handy to get her. Okay, so now the other side, this is where it gets pretty fun. Because now, let's see if we can kind of lay this down. Just give ourselves a little bit of room. So on here, oh, that's great. So they have an engine mount. So they have one of these right here, but over there. And what sucks is that it is keeping me from pulling this off. Now, you know what? I think I can get away with having this little bit of flex here to do everything I need. So we're not gonna pull that out. We're gonna leave that alone because that would be a little bit of a pain. So now that we did that, I am gonna put the shorter bolts just sitting back on the engine cover because there's so many bolts here that, and they're starting to get a little bit flavor to them, and I want to reduce the amount of confusion that I could start getting. All right. So now that we got some flex there, I'm hoping that I can get this removed, the exhaust removed, and then we can pull the head. So let's go ahead and start working on this guy. Now it looks like they have it all encapsulated in this nice plastic housing here. So that's fun. So let's see if we can get away with pulling. Let's see what we can do in terms of the amount of work we have to do here. So these are just plastic screws essentially. And they do have quite a bit of baffling on these, which is pretty nice to help keep these things fairly quiet. So there's another screw right here. And we do have a screw here. Okay, so this one is super short, just a note. So that's where they keep everything the same up until that point. I did notice they had some shielding under here, so that's good. Okay, cool. So looks like I should be able to, they have a bolt down here, and then they have these. So this actually is not going to be as bad as some of them. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pull this bolt. I'm gonna keep all the exhaust stuff close in one pile. And then we have this bolt, it's way back there. That's gonna be a little bit fun to back on, but we got some tricks. So that bolt was back in there. Okay, so this one's longer, that goes into the head. This one's shorter, that goes in the exhaust. Now we can loosen these up. I'm gonna grab what looks like a 10 mil and then hopefully we can just pull that right off real quick. So we're gonna break these loose. There we go. Yeah, unfortunately, this is a newer system, so fortunately, things are going fairly smooth. When you get into some of these older machines and stuff, especially like this, it can start to become difficult, depending on how they treated the machine. Okay, so these bolts essentially that are going into the stud look like this. Okay, so now we can just pull this right off. I'm gonna set.
Got a dead thing in it.
I'm gonna pull. Oh yeah, it does. I'm gonna pull this gasket off. Just got to be careful. Got to get it up just a little bit so I can get underneath it. There we go. And then I try to always put it back the way it came off. And this, I'm gonna set these with this, and then I'm gonna set, so the short went in that one, and the, I'm sorry, the long one, and then the short one right here. Oops. And then this short screw went in right here. I am going to just set it in there for now, just to remind me. And then these longer ones, I'm gonna set all this with the exhaust stuff. Now that we did all that, I actually do have to pull this one back out, because we got to get this shield off. And hoping, so it looks like it's just retained underneath this valve cover here. Yeah, I don't think I have to take any of this off, thankfully. I think this shield here is retained by the valve cover. And then, so now we're gonna go ahead and pull that valve cover. Let's see, this bolt goes there. I'm gonna set it right here. All right, so ground they're using right off the valve cover here. So keep that in mind. Okay. So I am gonna grab a flathead screwdriver. I'm just gonna try to twist it a little bit to help kind of pop that off. Just taking a flat-headed screwdriver, trying to just twist it a little bit, see if it will pop off. Yep, there we go. Just trying to take care.
Just save the gasket that you have a replacement for.
Yep. There we go. And now, this. So we'll probably have to take this insulator off. Let's see here. Oh, no, we don't. So I'm gonna try to tuck this out just like so. I'm gonna set it aside right here. And now we are finally to the head. So before I remove the head, I'm gonna set this engine to top dead center. So to do that, let me grab a long flat bladed screwdriver to reach down at the top of that piston there real quick. So with spark plug removed, which was already removed, we're gonna go ahead and rotate this to top dead center. And I'm having to turn this by hand, like so. Okay, so that was intake. so closest to carburetor. Exhaust valve is closest to muffler. So that right there is basically where top dead center is. Go down, the exhaust, then intake, and then top dead center. Right there. So we'll set it to top dead center, and now we'll go ahead and remove the head. So to remove the head, we need to make sure we have the right socket. Grab a 12mm socket. We're gonna go ahead and bust these loose. Like so. And then we'll go ahead and pull them. That's one bolt. Two bolt. These upper two a little shorter compared to the lower two. That's why I always set them down next to each other just to see what they look like. And you can also tell, in this case, you can tell why. This is shorter here, the distance, and then over here, it's a little bit higher up. So that's how you can kind of tell. Okay, so now we're gonna head, pop this loose. Before I pull this off all the way, I'm gonna push, get these push rods moved up, pushed down enough so I can rotate and get these rocker arms out of the way. So this one is intake, and it came out just like so. Always make sure you put it in the same direction and on the same side. One way I know which direction it is there's a little bit of a shininess there because of the little guide. So I know it goes in this way. Excuse me. I know it goes in this way, but I need to make sure this is stays on the intake side. This one stays on the exhaust side. So I'm gonna lay it down right over here. And then I'm gonna lay the other one over here. Normally I'll tape them and put a little indicator on it, but I'm gonna lay left and then right on the table over there. All right, so now that we did that, go ahead and pull this off. And that is the top of our piston on there. And then this is the bottom. We're not gonna reuse this head gasket. We got a new one. And then we gotta take this insulator off and put it onto our old one. Now that we got the head off and everything, we need to install the new head. So here's our new head, and we need to make sure the surface of this is clean. So let me grab a little bit of mineral spirits. I'm just gonna put a little bit on this rag here, and then just make sure this is cleaned up as best as possible. Excuse me. It looks like there's some kind of something right there, so I want to make sure these are definitely clean. Yeah, and you can see there's kind of like, looks like some tape or something gooey there. So,
rubber wheel.
Almost got it all, looks like. Yeah, you really don't want any of that stuff under there. There we go. Okay, so we clean that up. Now I'm gonna grab my new head gasket. So here's our new head gasket. And then before I install that, let me set that right there real quick. I'm gonna clean these head bolts of any debris or oils or anything like So I'm gonna just clean up these threads. This one looks like it had something. There we go. All right. Okay, so with our new head and our new head gasket, and then we're just gonna take a quick look, make sure all of this is clean. And then we're gonna go ahead and stick on our new head gasket. So just for reference, I'm noticing when I turn this around, I have these, what do you call it? Retainers, I guess you can call them. Pull it out with this one. And whoops, stick it in the exact same spot. And then I'm gonna try to match up this head gasket and everything exactly how they had it on the other one. And it looks like it's just like so. So now I'm gonna go ahead and see, so rocker arms go down here, or not rocker arms, push rods go down here. Try to tuck this in and turn on my little headlamp. Make sure that these little retainers get put in place. Now with the longer bolts, stick that down in like so. Now I just need to make sure, oh, here it is. It's on my impact. I'm gonna just run this down just so it's just snug by hand so I don't have to hold it up here. And to get the other one in, basically do the same thing. Now we can get them all in. Okay, so one thing I need to do though is get my push rods in there. What I like to do usually is keep these loose enough that I can kind of slide it back just enough so I can, excuse me, I can get my push rods underneath here without having to put so much force pushing down those rocker arms or valves. So let me start with my intake, and I always put a little assembly lube on the ends. Make sure you get that in its proper position. You don't necessarily have to put it on both ends just yet. You can usually just get away with the one end and then do it. This is just how I like to do it. Okay. Now, before, I need to loosen those up a little bit so I can pull this back just enough. Get these loose. So now, hopefully I can pull this back just enough. Make sure these are in its proper spot. And on this one, you're gonna have to kind of feel it. I'm gonna put a little bit of assembly lube up here on top of both valves, and then we're gonna back this out just a little bit more. these two are kind of keeping me from going as far as I would need to. Let me just take these two out. Actually, no, I can go quite a bit further than I thought. There we go. Just to help get it in there, under there. This one rotated on me. There we go. Okay, so make sure that everything's seating right. And I don't feel like I'm in the right spot. So let's see if I can try to see down in there. Sometimes these are a real pain, especially when they have this whole thing covered. So that one's in the right spot. And then this one. This one's in the right spot too. Okay, so they're both in the right spot, but I shouldn't have to fight it. Oh, I know why. So I need to make sure these are backed out. There we go. So technically, I could have done it a little bit differently, but normally when I pull the head off, I'm not having to replace the head. Usually I'm pulling the head because of the head gasket. So I was stuck in that mode. And on this, these valves were never adjusted because there's a whole new head. And what was happening is I noticed it wasn't seating. It should seat nice and flush with them underneath there, like so. And because it wasn't seating, if I go to bolt this down, I would have bent those push rods. So that's why you always want to check things, and you shouldn't ever have to force anything. Okay, so now these are loose and they are in its proper position. We will adjust valve lash, but first we got to torque this head. So to torque the head, let me check my torque specs here. So we have cylinder head cover bolts and cylinder head bolts. So cylinder head bolts is 24 to 26 Newton meters. So that, I need to do a conversion. So 24 Newton meters to foot-pounds. Convert. So it's 17. So let me set this. Oh, to inch pounds. Let me do inch pounds because it's more. Convert from 24 Newton meters. Okay, so we're looking at a 212. So let me make a note. So 212 inch pounds through 26 Newton meters, which is 230 inch pounds. So I'm gonna split the difference, go in the middle. So 212 minus 230 is 18 divided by 2, so 9. So 212 plus 9 is 221. So we're gonna torque it to 221 inch pounds. Okay, so 221 inch pounds. They don't say that we need a torque in between. So I'm just gonna get them snug, and then we're gonna go 221 inch pounds. I'm just gonna get these snug. Okay, now we're gonna go 221 inch pounds. So this is currently set for 100. 221. Set this to 221 inch-pounds, and then we're going to go ahead and torque it. All right, so we're at 221 inch-pounds on our head bolts. So now that it's torqued and everything, we need to go ahead and set our valve lash. When I looked up, the owner's manual states that should be between 4 thousandths to 6 thousandths valve lash. That's your clearance on both the intake and exhaust. We're going to go ahead and go in the middle at 5 thousandths. So let me grab the few tools I need. It looks like a 10, and maybe the others probably a 12 or 11, and then my shims real quick. So now we got to set the valve lash. To do that, let me grab 5 thousandths, which is this guy right here, and we have a 10 mil wrench for our capture nut, and then we have a 14 for the adjustment. So yeah, this is 5 thousandths. We'll go ahead and start with the exhaust. So what I do is I get it snug by finger where it's really holding it, because when I go to set this capture nut on the outside, it's going to actually open up that gap a little bit. So we're going to hold this, try to keep it from moving, and then get this capture nut snug. Now I didn't go too crazy yet. Yeah, see, that's a little tight, so I'm going to back this off just a little bit. Nope, I gotta loosen this up. There we go. Oh, you know one thing before we do that, I'm gonna loosen this up. The only reason why I'm doing that real quick, because this is brand new. This is a new head. There's a few things I forgot. This is a brand new head, so what I ideally would like to do is I'm going to take this capture nut off real quick. I'm going to take off this adjuster. And then I'm going to apply a little bit of assembly lube between there and back there. And then go ahead and run this down. I mean, you'd probably be okay getting away with not doing that, but I don't want to take any chances on anything. So that's why I went ahead and did that. Okay, so now we can go ahead and adjust that real quick. So holding the lower one, tightening the upper. We're just gonna get it snug. I'm gonna just feel it out. And it's really tight, so I'm gonna loosen this up a little bit. And then we're gonna loosen that. Normally, when I go to adjust these, when I tighten the top one, things get loose. But in this case, it's not so much. So I'm gonna go snug that, and that's like 5 thousandths. Like, I know I can't get anything more than that. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing on this side. Take that capture nut off. I'm gonna back this one off a little bit so I can get some assembly lube down in there. And up here. Okay. Get our 5,000s in there. Okay, so I just have that in like so. Let's go ahead and start snugging this. So that got tight. So we'll back this off, but tighten this upper one a little bit. Back it off a little bit more. Back the inner one up just a little bit. So that's still pretty tight. So back off the captured. And then the lower one just a little. Okay, so I think that's about it. Let me snug this up. Yeah, that's perfect. That one's perfect. Okay, I'm just double check, make sure these are snug. Let's see. Okay. We feel good there. So I'm gonna turn the engine over by hand first. So we got our exhaust, we got our intake, and now we're gonna come up to top dead center. I'm gonna actually go through one more time. Exhaust, intake, and now we're coming up to top dead. Now we'll reach with a screwdriver down in here, gently, fine. Make sure we're at the very top. Yeah, we're right there. And now we're gonna check lash one more time. Yeah, that's exactly 5,000, and that's exactly 5,000. So we're spot on. And just to verify, but I can tell because of how tight it is, this is 6,000. Yeah, I can't even get that in there. So yeah, we're exactly 5. All right, so now we have a new valve cover. Let's go ahead and put that on. Even though I saved our old one. I'm not a huge fan of these cork gaskets, but let's go ahead and gently get this removed. So all I'm doing is running a screwdriver underneath. If you really want to save this, like you don't have another gasket, you can do exactly what I'm doing. You can also apply a little bit of seafoam underneath to help kind of break it loose. Like right here, it's pretty tight. And like I just blew through it, but what I would have done is actually taken a razor with some seafoam and then just kind of, I'll show you real quick. Let me grab one. If you were really trying to save that gasket, what I would do is get a nice sharp razor, apply a little bit of seafoam on it on both sides, and then go ahead and hit that. Try to get it under, and then making sure it's nice and sharp, just kind of slowly work it. And then you can kind of very gently get it out like so. See? So that's one way you can do it if you're trying to save it, but we already have a new one, so it's not a big deal, but that's how you would do that. So now we'll go ahead and wipe this guy off, make sure everything's good, and go ahead and reinstall our valve cover. So valve cover bolts, let's see, just double check where I set them. So, oh, here they are. So, this was our plastic cover. We have our ground strap and so forth. So, let's make sure this is sitting where it needs to go. And get our 10 mil bolts in place. And grab my socket. And there's this one here. Put everything on loose. Don't snug it, so you have a little bit of room to shift things around. And then this one has our ground strap. Now that we got everything on there loose, we can go ahead and tighten it up. So usually what I do is I get everything snug, and then once I get it snug, I'll kind of go in and do my last little torque. So we'll just go ahead and torque it. Usually what I do is just a little turn like so. You don't need to go crazy. You don't have to break up the torque wrench. There we go. All right, so now we've got our valve cover on. We do have our new spark plug, and to avoid all these issues, I always recommend put some anti-seize on these threads before installing. I'm not saying that's what happened with this. I don't know what happened. It could have been cross-threaded whenever they manufacturer probably put it in there, and that's why the customer had a hell of a time getting it out. It's hard to say. So I'm gonna check the gap, and then we're gonna put some anti-seize on this. So let me grab my little gapper. So gap is usually around 30 thousandths. So, yep, we're good. So then I'll take some anti-seize. Get a little bit on the threads like so. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and thread it in. And then let me grab my socket, the correct socket for the spark plug. Now, sometimes my magnetic one is a little thick, so it's a pain. So can't use that one. So I gotta grab my other one. With this one, usually I'll take the rubber piece out, and there we go. And then we'll get this torqued on. There we go. We're good there. All right, so now we need to make sure this spark plug wire is routed properly. So this, what am I hitting? Goes up and over. I thought, let me just look at this real quick, because that goes like so. Yeah, this goes up over like this. And then this will plug in like so. So I'm gonna keep it unplugged because we still have to get this, what do you wanna call it? Air ducting work, insulator, whatever. And let's see. So I kind of did things a little bit backwards. So let's go ahead and slide this off. Put this through. And then we got to pop it around over here. So actually, we're gonna be better off. I think we have to, so it just pops on just underneath here, and I forgot that I actually took that off and then I pulled this off. So let's go ahead and pull this valve cover off real quick. Not a big deal. We use our Oga-Doga. Makes it a little quicker. Pull that off. And just because I want to be careful with this gasket, since it's cork, I'm going to set it into the valve cover. Now we'll go ahead and tuck this back in place, just like so. And now we can go ahead and get our valve cover reinstalled. Get this just snug enough that it's holding that back. And our ground strap. And that's another thing, like if I wasn't going to do this all in one day, I would take pictures, possibly more pictures, to make sure that I knew where all my bolts are supposed to go, especially when you have different lengths and different types. It's way easier to do it all in the same run if possible, but sometimes that's not always possible. So just keep that in mind. Okay. There we go. Perfect. All right, so that's all on there. We're gonna make sure our spark plug wire comes out and then plugs in, just like so. Make sure that's back. So we're gonna have a little insulator that goes on right here, which I gotta pull off the other one. So I already kind of started. So I sprayed some seafoam around this, and I'm hoping, since it's new, I can hopefully gently get this off without damaging it. Let's see here. Sometimes you can just kind of tap it. Usually I use something a little bit more. Sometimes just a shock kind of helps get it to come loose. I'm trying not to hit the gasket. I'm just trying to apply a little bit. There we go. So now let me get trying to get a little bit of seafoam in there, and hopefully I can save that gasket. If not, I will have to make one because they didn't provide me, or I may actually have one. Yeah, this one's, I may not. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. So we're gonna have to clean this up, and I think I actually have one in back, but yeah, there was no way of saving that. So you can usually save, what do you call it? If you can't save the gasket like that, you can always make them if you really have to, or you can just order it. So I got to get all of this old gasket material off. And the thing is when you're doing this, just be careful. You don't like dig your razor down into this. Just get the old gasket material off. And these are important areas because this is intake. This is an insulator, but connects to your car, and it's important that these are sealed, because if you get a little air leak here, you can run lean, and that will cause all kinds of running issues. You'll think it's a carb issue, but realistically, if you did have a leak here, it's definitely not a carb issue. Yeah, so when I'm doing this, I'm just being careful that I'm not digging down, and I'm using plenty of light that I can kind of I can see what I have in terms of material. Yeah, this thing is really on here. So yeah, there would have been no way saving that. This side is fine. And then just keep moving around, try different angles. You'll get it all. Yeah, so we're almost clear there. And then once I get it to that point, let me grab my other tool. I want to show you. Usually I'll take this and then gently try to got to keep it flat, and then it'll help kind of take off that remaining little bits. There we go. Perfect. So this just has a little bit. Got a new gasket here. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this all the way back. There we go. And now we can go ahead and bolt this down, or cover down. But before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the exhaust so I can get a few other things out of my way. And also, since we did do the exhaust first, we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll go that direction. So grab our exhaust. I'm gonna take the shorter bolt out from back there. Then we have a longer one that goes here, just that guy. Then we have our two exhaust mounting nuts. And then we have our gasket, which just came off just like this. Making sure this is clear. Put that on just like so. And now I'm gonna go ahead and get the little bug out of here. Yum. Okay, get that out. Now we can go ahead and set that down. And I am gonna go ahead and start getting these exhausts nuts started. I'm going to keep it loose because I got to get that other bolt in there. Excuse me. All right, so the shorter one with my extension, I'm going to see, okay, so in some cases like this, what I'll do is I'll grab a little bit of tape, and what I can sometimes do to help this bolt kind of stick on here, I'll kind of just jam that in there. That way I can hopefully hold it and get this guided in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. With this loose, I got her. Okay, so now I can pull this back out, and I notice my piece of tape is still in there. So make sure I grab that. And then we also have this longer bolt here. This is all still loose. I'm just gonna get things close. All right, so this is loose, the bolts down here are loose, and these nuts are loose. I'm gonna start with the nuts. I'm gonna get these taut. After I get snug, I just get a little turn like so. And down here, get that snug and then taut. And then this last one here. Now that we have tightened these up, everything's tight on the muffler and stuff, we got to go ahead and reinstall this shield. And I put the short screw in here, so we're gonna pull that out. Now, when you put these in, let's get this there. So this is all seating like it should. Now, when you go put these back in, these screws back in, especially if you're using something like this, just get it snug. Don't ooga-dooga it. Like, go until you see it snug, and see I went snug, and that's not coming off. So now, these are all the same. Let me get my little extension on this so I'm not at such an angle. There we go. Depending on the, like some of the lengths where you get some good meat, you may have to give it a little bit, but like that second one, I just go until I see it, and then what you can always do is just let it slip. Oops. There we go. And then the last one is this. It's interesting. So this slides like that. There we go. All right, so we have our shield on. Now, we're gonna go ahead and start getting this reinstalled. And once we get this on with the pole starter assembly, we'll go ahead and get our carb on. So let's go ahead and do that. So I know those are 10 mil, and then we have our bolts. We had our little wire retainer like this up here. So this one I know goes up here. So all I'm doing is I'm just getting these so they're finger tight. Also making sure that these are routed in its correct spot. So I'm just gonna double check, yep, that's where it's supposed to go. Same thing here. And then we have one right over here. And then we have one way down in that little abyss. And what I ended up doing is I use a shorty, a 1/4 inch, and I'm gonna do the same trick I did with the tape, because I can't hold that and drop that in there. So let me grab my magnet so I can get that out. Grab a little bit of tape. Then we'll set it on here like so and push this in to help hold it. There we go. And then feed that down in there. This is where, if you have big hands, it can be very, very challenging. So I got the bolts tightened up for the engine cover now. I'm gonna go ahead and get the pole starter installed, because that's what's gonna also help kind of hold this up. So pull these shorter bolts out that I just set in here, just to remind me of where it goes, what goes where. And then this pole starter assembly. Do need to make sure you orientate it properly. And what I'm doing, if you notice, the cup needs to sit inside here, and it's really tight. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to pull the engine back a little bit and then get it in like I did. Now, what you got to do before you bolt this down is make sure you get the proper orientation. So you could have it way down like this, which is definitely wrong. And you want it like so, because that's straight line from here out. So you could have it like that, you could have it way over here. Make sure you get it in the right spot. And in this case, it's right like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this one started, because this is the easiest one to be able to start. And now I got to get these other ones, which is going to be a little more challenging, installed. And I might end up having to just take the socket and try to use the socket to help me get lined up and started to be screwed in. And I got that one going. Now I got to do the same thing over here. Now that I have that in a proper spot, I can tip that back and gain more access to this one. Like so. And then once you get them all in, you can bend over a big finger and everything's loose, then you can go ahead and tighten everything up. So this one's in. Let's go ahead and tighten this one up. And all I'm doing is I'm getting snug, and then I'm just like that. Not anything more. And then this one down here, I have less clearance. This one I have to kind of get a little more snug. There we go. Okay, now that's torqued. All right, so real quick, I'm gonna gently pull the engine over. Just wanna make sure everything's good so far, which is gonna be kind of a pain because I have the spark plug in. There we go. Okay, so just confirming that engine's turning over, everything's good. I did check earlier when before I put this all on. That's why we turned it over several times before we finished a lot of this, especially the head. Okay, so now that we got that done, we're gonna go ahead and get this carburetor routed over. And this one actually has the gasket on the carb itself, and it looks good. So we're gonna go ahead and pull this close and slide this back just like that. Now we'll grab our air filter assembly, and let's see, before I put that on, I'm gonna get this choke reinstalled. And these little Phillips here. Snug this. And now, so this choke is closed. So make sure it's closed, because this, or I mean, yeah, closed as in open. Because this was open also. Loosen that up, route this through. Looks like I need to move that up a little more. There we go, route it through. And then I'm gonna hold this, making sure choke is open. And then we're gonna go ahead and start tightening this down. Let's see, I don't know. Hold it with some pliers. Here we go. I'm just gonna hold it with some pliers and then just snug that. So now if I pull this choke, you should see it's closed all the way. Open, closed, open, closed. So we're gonna open that back up. We're gonna reconnect the other end of this vent tube, which goes down here and connects right here, like so. And then this, there's a hole in the bottom of the case there that I've routed that out. And then this the bowl drain tube goes down here like so. Carburetor installed, everything mounted to it. We checked choke and all that kind of stuff, routed the hoses and everything. We're gonna go ahead and reinstall this air filter cover housing, or air filter housing. And then, so that is with these two 10mm nuts. Turn this on just sort of slightly so I can actually see a little bit better. Okay. There we go. So that's good. That's good. All right. So then we have our valve cover breather tube right here. And then we also have our evap canister tube that connects right here. And then we'll go ahead and reinstall the air filter. This is always over the choke plate area. So in case you're wondering which direction, so make sure it's like that. And then air filter, this went in just like so, not that it matters. And then this goes like this. And there we go. So now that that is done, we're going to go ahead and get our inverter and everything hooked back up. I got these two bolts that I just finger tight. Try to do everything in reverse of what you did before. So in this case, this was the last plug. And make sure you seat them in all the way. There we go, heard that one click. And let's see here. So these two plugs right here, one goes there, the other one goes here. And then these guys, this is our throttle control. I'm not sure what this one is right offhand. Oh, that's part of, let's see that. And then that goes up higher. So I'll need to bring, but before, just want to make sure I'm getting everything where it should be. Okay, so this one definitely goes up here. So now I gotta hold this up closer to where it should be. And then this guy. Okay, so this one goes over here. And this one, these two, they are keyed. So like, see how that won't go together? Actually, hold on, this is the right one. So it's just this pin right here. There we go. And this one connects like that. And then last, so just making sure there's no other connectors that I missed, because it's a lot easier to do that now than later. And this guy right there. Now we can go ahead and put our bolts in, mount the inverter. There we go. Now, get that snugged up. There we go. All right, so now that we got that all, excuse me, bolted up, we're gonna go ahead and get our battery. I'm just taking a look at everything I have. Actually, before I hook up our battery, I'm gonna get our gas tank reinstalled up here. So this fuel line needs to connect. So I'm gonna just spray a little bit of seafoam on the connector. That way it just makes it a little easier to kind of slip on. So I'm not having to fight it so bad. Now I need to make sure I get my hose clamp reinstalled. And then that will sit in just like so. I'm just taking a peek at my hose, my fuel line. I need to rotate it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. To make sure it's sitting at the proper angle. Now we can go ahead and connect our vents. Our hose band. There we go. Now that we got the gas tank hooked up on the breather and the fuel line, I'm gonna go ahead and rotate this, and I'm gonna get this this cover, the lower bolts in place. Just a note, when you go to push this on, right over here, you can see that this actually slides in, and it's kind of toothed right here. So make sure you put it in its right spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab 2 bolts, and then I'm gonna stick it in here, get it started. Same thing over here on this side, and I can see where it needs to be positioned, at least when I look down up here. Get this started. Now I'll go ahead and tighten them. So the reason for that, it just makes it a little easier so that all of that is being held in place. we can still open it up. We may actually have to loosen it and take it off. But we'll get back to that if we have to. But I'm just gonna have it on there for right now. It's just to hold this in place. So we're gonna go ahead and get this battery hooked up. So take the little screw out that I put back on. And then this is our positive lead. So sometimes, just because I may not have enough hands, I'll have some extra wood kind of sitting nearby that I can kind of set things up on to hopefully make things a little bit easier. So I'll set the screw in there, kind of rotate this a little bit, and get it. This goes in like so. Actually, they had it like this, where the contacts are up high, so this rubber cover covers over it. So I'll show you. Let me rotate this. You can see the contacts there. Now, if I go to push this in, it'll cover those, so they'll technically go up high like that. So the only downside is I kind of covered up where this clips in. So I'm gonna see if I can kind of hopefully sneak this down, and then with a pair of needle nose pliers, hopefully I can get it where I need to be. With the help. There we go. Got it. So now move it over here, pull this out, and now the battery is mounted and secured. Okay, now we can go ahead and hook up our power, or ground, I should say. So I'm actually gonna disconnect this. I'm gonna tuck it behind and then connect it. That way it's just not pushing out. Okay, so before I close everything up, now that I got everything hooked up, we just gotta put the case and the cover all back on. Before I put all of that back together, we are put together enough that we should be able to test this. So choke out, fuel on, that's on, eco mode is off, and then let's go ahead and start it. I know the gas was hardly anything in here, so let me see where we're at. Oh yeah, there's like nothing in here. So I'm gonna put some fresh gas in this. Okay. Now that we have some fresh gas in there, and I can see a nice layer on the bottom, so I know fuel is going to get to where it needs to go, I can go ahead and choke this and try to start it. Leave the choke out just a little bit, let it warm up. The choke's off. There it goes. So voltage is good, frequency looks good, has 73 hours on it. Check eco mode. There we go, so eco mode off. Turn off fuel and shut it down. Excuse me. All right, so now that we did a quick test, make sure everything is good, we are gonna go ahead and put this back together. So basically do it in reverse of what you did before. And so this is on the exhaust side, and I usually lay things down in the order that I took it off. So let's rotate this. We'll get this back on over here. And just a note, it has to slip in underneath here. So it slips in just like so. We'll pull this up. And then these screws in here that's set in here are for the gas tank. There's one here and one right here. And then the gas tank will sit on top, like so. So let me get the 4 bolts, or the 2 bolts in down here. So 1, 2, and we're gonna go ahead and just finger tighten them. There we go. Sometimes you have to lift up and get it in place. Make sure, there we go. Pull it out real quick. Let me see what this side looks like. So I feel like there's something not 100% right. Oh, I can't get, wait. Let me just double check things. So that is good. I feel like there's probably a spot under here. So let me lift this up. This is where the blocks can come handy. You can kind of tip it, set that just in. So what I gotta check is I gotta see I think, yeah, just like that. So sometimes you just gotta kind of wiggle things a little bit, get things in the right spot. There we go. So now we can snug those 2 up. Perfect. Now, can't really lift with that handle yet because not everything's together. Okay, so for the tank, gotta get this tank reinstalled in place. So get these 2 screws in. So we have one right here. Just be careful you don't drop it, because this is the time where if you dropped it, it's not going to be fun. There we go. Okay. So I'm not going to snug that up just yet until I get the 2 or the 4 screws that go in over here, and that's what these are. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And this, again, you're going to want to be really careful. Don't drop it. I try to get it in place like so, and then just get it started. Get a good few threads on there, and then do the next one. So I'm only going halfway through, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go up here, go to this one, get it halfway through, and then this last one. We're gonna go ahead and snug these all up. I'm gonna go grab a little longer screwdriver real quick. We'll go ahead and get it nice and tight. Same thing with these. And now I can get this gas tank. We may have to make a slight adjustment, but I'm gonna go ahead and get them tight now so that I don't forget. And if it doesn't line up, I can always loosen it up. Okay, so that's installed on there. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and go to the other side, get the inverter side installed. And on here, we want to kind of tuck that wire in. But this, you got to remember, it slips up underneath. Just like so. Just want to make sure this inverter wire is not getting pinched, and that's why I lifted it up. And now we can get our 2 bolts in down here. There we go. You need to get this screw back in. Now that we got part of this together, get these started. Excuse me. I'm just making sure I'm catching, just threading in before I then use the Ooga Dooga. That's tight. I already put the 3 screws back into this. It didn't need to be pulled off, and technically this didn't need to get pulled off, but I did anyway. So we'll get those screws in real quick. Just get them started. Then once we get them all in, and tighten her down. All right, so then real quick, I'm gonna turn this around. Finish these few screws. I have these 2 longer ones, and I did put the 2 longer ones on top over there. Get that started. There we go. Those bolts are in. So now turn this facing us, get the screws in on the front panel here. Real quick, just get them started by finger. There we go. All right, now we can tighten them. Okay, so rotate this. So we got this side. Now I got to get this cover. And then remember, there's a little guide right here that goes right in there. There we go. Now we can go ahead and get the bolts in on this. So got these two. Tighten that up real quick. Okay, now we'll get the screws started on this side. Now we'll zing them. Yeah, that's snug. Oh. Thought I had this started. Okay, let me loosen this up. There we go. That one's good. That one's good. Now the cover, it has larger ones. Goes on just like so. All right, so the last thing we got to do is up here on this side, we have these 4 screws we need to get into here. Now, just be real careful, don't drop anything. So what I noticed is right over here, there's a little hose clip. I put the hose back in its spot. So on this, I need to kind of pull this out a little bit. So let me loosen this just a little bit. These 2 screws. So hopefully I can pull this back. I'll loosen this one. There we go. So that's the thing, is sometimes when you put things on, you need it. So let me loosen these up just a smidge. So hopefully I can have a little room to move that. So let me go over here first. There we go. Got that one started. Got that one started. Oh yes, got that one started. Now, last one up here. There we go, cool. Now we can snug this all up, or get this nice and tight. And get this one nice and tight. And then the same thing with these. quick, turn it around, tighten up these 4 that I loosened up. Okay, so last part, there are a couple screws. There's 4 screws, which is all we have left outside of the other 4. There's one that goes right here. Then one that goes right here. One right here. And the last one over here. Now I can snug those all up. Now if you do everything right, you don't have any extra screws laying around, which we did it right. So then we have these 4 screws. These were longer, which is why I set them on here. And then we just got to pull this gas cap off like so. And then we got to route that in. And so it looks like this. Actually, probably easier if we tuck it in. Actually, no, this side goes down underneath like so, and then over here it just presses down. There we go. So that's all flush, that's in its spot. And then I'll just set the cap on there, get these screws started. So now we can tighten them all up. And then reinstall our gas cap retainer. So basically you just got to pinch this, kind of get one side in. And then get the other side in, just like so. Okay, so now that we got everything back together, we have no extra parts, which is the biggest thing. You don't want any extra parts. So we're gonna fire it up. Let me grab my my meter and my heat gun, because once we get everything done, we always test it under a load. And we always check to make sure we have proper voltage and frequency output. So turn on fuel, turn that on, make sure eco mode is off, and we're gonna go ahead and electric start. Let it wake up. Sometimes these take a little bit. So voltage, frequency, and hours. So voltage and frequency looks good there. Switch it over to watts. And then high. Low. Off. Then eco mode on. High. Low, then off. And then go ahead and turn off fuel, turn off eco mode, shut it down. Overall, you basically just got to test everything at the last second, once everything's done, and that's how you replace the head on one of these. It's not a quick, easy task, but in the end, at least it is done and ready to go. So we'll go ahead and clean this thing up and on to the next one.